Hey homies, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 1984, the book, not the year. It is a dystopian novel by George Orwell, and it was written in 1948. And the author imagined that this is what life would be like in 1984. I actually read it for the first time in 1984 when I was in the 11th grade. So, the year is 1984. The world is divided into three totalitarian superstates: Oceania, Eurasia, and Eastasia. Oceania is ruled by the Party, which is led by Big Brother. The Party controls every aspect of life in Oceania, from thought to speech to action. Winston Smith is a low-ranking member of the Outer Party. He works in the Ministry of Truth, where he rewrites history to fit the party's ever-changing narrative. Winston is increasingly disillusioned with the party and its oppressive rule. He begins to keep a diary where he writes about his thoughts and feelings. He also starts to have a relationship with Julia, a young woman who works in the fiction department. So, Winston and Julia are eventually caught by the thought police. They are tortured and brainwashed, and they are forced to betray each other. Winston is sent to the Ministry of Love, where he is subjected to psychological torture. He is eventually released, but he is a broken man. He has lost all hope for the future, and he has come to love Big Brother. The story ends with Winston standing in Victory Square, watching the telescreens. He sees the image of Big Brother and he repeats the party slogan: "War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength." So, if you hadn't noticed, 1984 is a novel about a totalitarian society where the government controls every aspect of people's lives. The protagonist, Winston Smith, is a man who begins to question the government and eventually rebels against it. This is an important novel because it warns us about the dangers of totalitarianism. It shows us how easily our freedoms can be taken away and how important it is to fight for them. So, there are some themes in 1984. The first is totalitarianism. The government in 1984 controls every aspect of people's lives, from their thoughts to their actions. Another theme is thought crime. The government in 1984 punishes people for even thinking about things that are considered to be against the party. Newspeak is another theme. The government in 1984 creates a new language called Newspeak that is designed to limit people's thoughts. Then there is doublethink. The government in 1984 teaches people to believe two contradictory things at the same time. So why is 1984 relevant today? So it is still relevant today because many of the themes of the novel are still present in our world today. For example, we see governments using surveillance to track our every move, and we see people being punished for their thoughts. And we see the use of propaganda to control people's minds. Well, we can learn a lot from the book 1984. We can learn about the dangers of totalitarianism. We can learn about the importance of freedom, and we can learn about the importance of fighting for our rights. So, the reason we're talking about 1984 is because it, like so many other classics, are being banned. 1984 has been banned in many countries, including the Soviet Union up until 1988. It is currently banned in China, Cuba, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Sudan, and Vietnam. The book has also been challenged in many other countries, including the United States. The reasons for banning 1984 vary from country to country. In some cases, the book is banned because it is seen as critical of the government. In other cases, the book is banned because it is seen as being sexually explicit or blasphemous. Whatever the reason, the banning of 1984 is a reminder of the importance of freedom of speech and the dangers of censorship. In the United States, 1984 is mostly being banned in school districts. In 2017, for example, the Jefferson School District in Idaho banned the book after a parent complained about its violent and sexually explicit content. The book was also banned in Baldwin County District in Alabama in 2018. In 2021, the Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District in Texas removed the book from its curriculum after a parent called it pornographic. The banning of 1984 in schools is a controversial issue. The banning of most books in schools is a controversial issue. But in the case of 1984, some believe that the book is too mature for children and should not be taught in schools. Others believe the book is an important work of literature that should be read by everyone, regardless of age. So what makes it explicit? So there are a few passages in 1984 that can be considered explicit. For example, in chapter 1, Winston Smith has a dream that he is in bed with a woman. The dream is described in some detail, and it could be considered explicit by some readers. In chapter 6, Winston and Julia are in bed together for the first time. This scene is also described in some detail and could be considered explicit by some readers. In chapter 9, Winston is tortured by the thought police. The torture scenes are described in some detail and could be considered violent and explicit by some readers. So, as I stated before, 1984 was written in 1948. It reflects the social and cultural norms of 1948. The book was not intended to be explicit, and it is not meant to be titillating. The explicit passages in this book are there to serve a purpose. They are to show the reader the dark and oppressive world of Oceania, and they are meant to shock the reader into thinking about the dangers of totalitarianism. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to ban the book 1984 in schools is up to the individual school district. So, I'm bothered by the overall state of censorship in our country at this time, and that many books that I read, that my parents read, that if I had grandchildren that they would be reading, are not allowed. If a book was allowed in 1948 and it was considered a classic, it baffles me that it is not considered a classic now. When so many books can be abridged also, and then the student will still get the full gist of the story without those 3 passages that might be, harmful to some child. So, I'm going to be talking about banned books for a while. If you don't know about me, I am a homeschool advocate, a veteran homeschooler, and a personal guidance counselor. If you go to my profile, you should be able to find links to my list of banned books and my website. Till next time.